Now, so what's happening over the weekend is BuzzFeed is in a tight position, getting blasted for putting out fake news, getting caught with it, and this is what their name is being dragged through the mud with, right? Something has to happen. Something has to take the attention off of it. And you couldn't have found a better story to do that with than something that would otherwise not be a story at all. Right? This shouldn't have been a story at all, but it blew up to be what has been now days of being a major headlining story about what happened with the protesting of 3 different groups, which you're only hearing about 2.
Yes.
Down at the Lincoln National Memorial in Washington, D.C. So if for some reason you've been living under a rock for the past 3 or 4 days and you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, here's the video that came out on, I want to say Friday or Saturday. It was maybe Saturday morning. When was the Women's March? I'm sorry, the March for Life.
Wasn't that Saturday?
I think it was Saturday. It came out immediately on Saturday, then, this video. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the video that was spread virally through all the major news outlets exactly as it was shown. So let's take a look at that first. I'm so what you're seeing there is a video of a confrontation, right? And what I posted immediately was, this is really weird. And I said, who instigated this situation? It's not very clear. And what I've grown accustomed to is the media absolutely lying and taking things out of context, right?
Right.
If you were to ask me, do these boys look like they're being disrespectful? I would have to say, yeah, there's a good possibility that they're being disrespectful, right? But it starts with them face to face. It doesn't start with one approaching the other in either direction.
Sure,
right?
It's all in context.
Yeah.
It's all in what you see, how you look at it, and you don't see that.
There's nothing before and there's nothing after,
right?
So we're led to believe through the video being spread virally that these Covington Catholic kids are mocking a Native American elder, right? And we're left with that, left hanging for a good 6 hours at least, right? But in the meantime, this goes crazy on the internet, okay? Before we get to that, you said that there were some comments and everything there.
You're ignoring another change in journalism, though, and that's the change from objective reporting to activism.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the 60s, aspiring journalists entering journalism programs in college no longer wanted to merely report, but to change the world.
That's true.
And so it's not about reporting facts, it's about advancing their agenda.
Yeah. And to go along with that, not only is it activism, I think that there's been a real... First of all, it is activism. I'm not saying it's not activism, but it's commentary, right? And I think that there was a yearning, I guess you could say, or a desire for people to hear other people's opinions on the news, not just the news itself. Because people like, I think it was Dan Rather, he may have leaned one way or the other, but he stated the facts and that was it. Good night. You know what I mean? Like, he stated it, come up with your own opinion on it. I may lean one way or the other, but here's what happened. Decide for yourself how you feel about that, right?
Sure.
Nowadays, you have people like Rachel Maddow on the left, Chris Hayes, which I get them both confused all the time. And and you have Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh on the right.
It's all opinion-based. Everything's opinion-based.
And those are supposed to be labeled as such, commentary, right? And people are interested in their opinions because they break down, based on their ideology, what's going on with those news stories and what happens.
Sure, and the way they present the opinion, it kind of draws you in, and you think, I agree with this person, or this person's full of shit.
Or it makes you think.
Yes.
You know? But it's also confusing to people who are looking for news from these channels that tune in and catch a show like Rachel Maddow's or Sean Hannity's and take that as news, you know? Because you're hearing an opinion.
Right.
And it's supposed to be heard as an opinion. You're supposed to take that opinion and work with it. It's like Plato. You know what I mean? You're supposed to take that and say, does that fit with what I'm thinking? Do I agree with that? Or, hey, I don't agree with that, but it made me think. Or, that's backcrap crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's supposed to make you think. And that's the point of opinion stuff. But we've gotten dumb as a culture. Right? Where people actually look at that and go, that's what the news said. You'll hear these stories all the time. Well, that's what I saw on the news. What news? Rachel Maddow was talking about. Well, okay, you're viewing it through some very different lenses here in regards to how that was actually reported at the time. And I would say the same thing about Sean Hannity, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not sticking up for either one of them. I happen to think Rachel Maddow is an instigator and weaponizes the media against people.
Absolutely.
But I think Sean Hannity has done that in the past, too.
Yes, I've heard it, too. I listen to Hannity on my way home on WAEB every day.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing. I'm like, yeah, you may be pushing the envelope there a little bit. How many times do I have to hear about story A, B, and C?
I don't listen to them anymore.
Because
it's the same stuff.
It is. It's the same stuff over and over. Even though it's a new program, he's talking about the same stuff we talked about yesterday and the day before and the year before and the year before.
Yeah.
And it kind of gets tired.
The thing that I got sick of was right around the time that Trump got elected, he was praising Trump for things that he criticized Obama for. Almost, it was mirror, right? And I thought, and I think it was MSNBC or one of those shows, I think maybe even Bill Maher, that I saw the clip pop up on, and I watched it just to see what they were talking about, and it's pretty damning evidence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought, that's pretty douchey, dude. Like you're clearly being a hypocrite. You know what I mean? I got way off course again. We're talking about these Catholic kids here. So I'm way off. I'm sorry, guys. And it's already a long topic as it is to go with here. Yeah, okay. So there's people commenting already. But let's see what happened after that story came out. So the headline of that, released with that video that we just watched, I'm way off topic. I'm so sorry. Because now I'm turning this crazy topic into something else. The headline for that article was, "The MAGA hat-wearing teens who taunted a Native American elder could be expelled." Right? And this whole story is written as a complete bias piece by this Julia Reinstein and Stephanie Baer from BuzzFeed. And once the full video, which is 2 hours, that came out. By the way, over the past 2 nights before this, I wanted to have this podcast on Monday night. Over the past 2 days, I have been sorting through 2 hours of video, articles, tweets from celebrities. This has been one of the most intense stories that I've ever had to cover. So we have a lot more to go yet here, because the breakdown of this will drive you absolutely backcrap crazy.
Just before I came up here, I Googled. All I did was put Covington into the Google search bar. There must have been 6 full pages of all different kinds of opinions. One's from the left, one's from the right. Everybody thinks that they're correct. So
no. So here's the thing. They go on this whole diatribe about how horrible these teenagers are. And after the evidence comes out to show otherwise, by the way, spoiler alert, the article has been updated in the sub-headline here, and it just says, "Update. A new video later emerged with more context about the incident, which was more confusing than the viral clips made it seem. That's the only update. Not these kids were innocent, not, hey, maybe there's more to this story and we're going to update with another story or anything.
Retraction,
it's just no apology,
none of that.
Nothing, right? By the way, I find it interesting that we were talking about toxic masculinity with the Gillette ad. Where are the Gillette dads to come in here and break these two up and say, hey, get out of each other's faces? Like the one that pulled off the kid from the other one. You know what I mean? Where are the Gillette dads?
Boys will be boys.
Yeah, exactly. Native Americans will be Native Americans. Okay, so before we get to what actually happened with this, there was an instant outrage response from society and culture at large, right? A Democrat congressman called for the banning of MAGA hats after the March for Life confrontation. So this is exactly what he said here. Okay.
I thought about wearing mine tonight.
Representative John Yarmouth said, I'm calling for a total and complete shutdown of teenagers wearing MAGA hats until we can figure out what is going on. They seem to be poisoning young minds. Okay? The conduct we saw in this video is beyond appalling. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. This is a direct result of the racist hatred displayed daily by the President of the United States, who sadly, is some mistake for a role model. So Trump was brought into this because of the MAGA hats, right? And now, like I said, liberals will lead you to believe that guns get up and just randomly shoot people by themselves, that there's no evil person with evil intentions behind them, and that an inanimate object like a MAGA hat, Make America Great Again hat, can literally seep into the cells of someone's head and poison their minds of teenagers, right? So this is what we're dealing with. That's one representative. This is beyond disgusting to me.
Let's hear it.
And I may say her name wrong. One of the newest elected Congress people, the Muslim woman, Ilhan Omar, I believe is her name. It says, this is on the Daily Wire, it says, Ilhan Omar smears Covington Catholic boys and defends the hate group that attacked them. Her tweet was, the boys were protesting a woman's right to choose and yelled, quote, "It's not rape if you enjoy it." Okay? They were taunting 5 black men before they surrounded Phillips, the Native American in the video, and led racist chants. Nick Sandman, in the video was this kid that was smirking, as they say. Sandman's family hired a right-wing PR firm to write his non-apology. Okay? Everything she laid out there is provably, absolutely false information and made to look like these boys are the evilest monsters on the face of the planet, right? By the way, being anti-abortion is not being anti-women at all.
No.
As a matter of fact, you're actually trying to save 50% of the women that they abort.
Yes.
Or not 50%, 100% of the women that they abort, but 50% of total of the abortions and everything, right? By the way, approaching 60 million since Roe v. Wade was passed, by which Roe, who was for abortion, has now changed her mind and is surprisingly not mentioned in the media as a pro-life activist of great magnitude.
Nobody wants to touch Roe v. Wade.
No.
I remember commenting on one of your last podcasts, the one on New Year's, about how Roe v. Wade is 1972.
Yeah, it was around there.
And there's been no updates, nothing. The law should change with the time. It's a whole fluid type of.
Ooh, careful with that.
Well, I don't even know if I can rephrase it.
The law. It's a tough thing because a lot of people on the left would say that the Constitution is an old dusty argument that doesn't hold any weight anymore because times have changed.
True.
Right?
True.
When I think it's a timeless article or timeless document that can be applied to any type of new technology or anything today. It really is about just keeping the government out of your business.
Yeah.
Which is the main difference between our Constitution and any other country's Constitution, where their constitutions lay out what your rights are. Ours lays out your constitutionally protected rights from the government that they can't do to you.
It's like what I was trying to say is it's neglecting like scientific advances and things that have that we've learned since 1972.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just amazing to me.
Gear up. I don't know if you want earplugs for this or not.
Uh-oh.
Kathy Griffin. Yeah. So this is a woman who did a photo shoot. Yeah, tries to stay relevant as much as possible.
I don't know if she ever really was relevant, but
she had her stint for a little while there. I think she used to be funny, but you know, I give comedians a certain type of leniency. Take Louis C.K., for example. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. He said some pretty disgusting things, but I thought it was hilarious because he's trying to bring attention to serious topics using comedy, right? That I get. Like I believe that there's a certain amount of leniency that you allow for comedians to push the envelope on things to bring attention to certain topics. For instance, I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast today, right? And a comedian was on at one point in time, this isn't a recent one or anything, that was talking about how he got pulled off of the stage at a college campus because he made a joke about gay black men, right? And his joke was, you can tell that being gay isn't a choice because there's black men. And no black man wakes up one day and says, hey, you know what? I have it easy. I'm also going to be gay as well. And that is a funny freaking joke because like he said, if you really read into it, that is progressive liberal joke because black people, especially black men, especially in a culture that labels men as toxic on top of it, right, have it rough. And then gays have it rough. So to be double that, you're getting blasted, right? So he got pulled off of stage for making that joke because the snowflakes in the audience couldn't handle it and thought it was insensitive. You're allowed to, as a comedian, push that type of borderline issue because it actually ended up bringing attention to the fact that he was using progressive ideology to push a joke. I thought it was hilarious. You know, Louis C.K. went really overboard with his Parkland school students talking in front of Congress and everything. But he brought up the point of why are we as adults with life experience listening to kids testify in front of Congress? What the hell do they have to say besides the fact that they were there? That's it. And as I mentioned on the podcast, I'm a cancer survivor. You're not going to see me going into a doctor's office and telling a doctor how to treat the patient just because I had cancer.
Right.
You know? Being somewhere and experiencing something doesn't make you a professional or expert on a certain topic. That topic specifically.
I don't think either of those two things that those people said were out of line.
Not at all.
I didn't think so, especially in the decorum. You're a comedian.
Right. Now, here's the thing. If you want to keep it clean, then that's something different. Right. There's clean comedy. There's raunchy comedy. I should be better at what I listen to and everything. And to be very honest with you, there is something to be said that if I were to curse on my podcast myself, that I would probably have more of a following than I do. But I don't. Because I'm put out onto a radio station and I'm a Christian. First, I'm a Christian. I should say that. I'm a Christian and also I get put onto a radio station and I can't, I would have to go through and beep out everything, first of all. But I know people would rather listen to someone like Joe Rogan curse on and on about something.
Or Adam Carolla.
Right. Yeah. But he gets away with it because they're kind of the godfathers of the podcast situation. And they don't really care about that kind of thing.
Right.
Whatever. I'm okay with it. Anyway, we're getting back to Kathy Griffin here, who's a piece of scum.
Yeah.
She's the one who, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, did a photo shoot with a decapitated head of Donald Trump, all bloody and everything. It was a mask of him and everything, but she was doing a photo shoot and she tried to pass this off as comedy, which I believe is the abuse of that line that I set for comedians, right? Which is you have leniency to use comedy to push issues and make it relevant and have people think about things. But when you do something that's blatantly out of hate and you say, whoa, I'm a comedian. I get to do that type of thing. No. You're abusing your power of the soapbox that you get on for comedy to push issues of hate. That's something completely different, okay? And Kathy Griffin has been nothing but a hateful person. Yes. I had a bee a B sound coming in, but a person, a very hateful person that is toxic to society.
Sure, she lost all of her sponsors and everything else because of that whole stint.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So here's what
Can't
she had
say
to
that I blame her.
Yeah, here's what she had to say in regards to the Covington Catholic situation. P.S. Oh, this is a reply and everything, but basically she said, "I want names. These, if you think that these kids, oh, okay, yeah, name these, yeah, okay, this is the right one."
Was this the tweet that was deleted? I read somewhere that she deleted.
I'll do that one next because it's funny.
Okay.
That one's funny. It says, "P.S. The reply from the school was pathetic and impotent. Name these kids. I want capital letters names. Shame them. If you think these effers wouldn't dox you in a heartbeat, think again." So doxing. Let's talk about that real quick. Doxing is getting the personal contact information, including phone numbers, addresses, places where you work, information on your family members and everything, putting it online so that people can harass them, whether that's physically or verbally, right? And can lead to, in a lot of cases, violence.
Sure.
Right? Especially when you are in the context of what she's doing here. She is calling with this for action. Doxing, the topic of doxing leads me to the topic of free speech, okay? And we just went over this, which is why this is so relevant. We just talked about this the other day in one of the other podcasts within the last 2 weeks. I forget what the topic was, but I said there's a difference when it comes to free speech on what you can say. People will say, well, you can say whatever you want, but you can't, for instance, yell fire in a crowded theater. Yes, you can. You have that is a freedom of speech. You can yell it, but you have to deal with the consequences.
There are consequences to every action, anything you say.
Exactly, right. So you have that freedom of speech, but there is a difference. I can say, I wouldn't say, I want this person dead, right? I was going to use an example, but I won't. I could say, I want this person dead. I can say that, right? I wish this person would die. Right? That's okay to say. I think it's a very vile thing to say, I guess you could say, but it's okay to say because of your freedom of speech. Right. What you can't say is, hey, I'll give $100 to someone that goes out and kills that person. That is a call to action. And that is something completely different. It is not protected under the First Amendment when you call to action to hurt someone or violate their rights, in essence, right? Do you have something there?
Well, I think this is in response to what I said about Roe v. Wade. Forgive him, he went to public school.
Yeah, we both did, unfortunately.
No, but he also goes to say that that's the real problem with Roe v. Wade, that it was a constitutional overreach to begin with. It never should have been decided by the Supreme Court nor legislated at the federal level.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that. So here we have Kathy Griffin calling for the personal information of these kids, and that was being released online.
Just what you said there, these kids.
Kids.
They're kids.
Yep. So that's Kathy Griffin on that. So here's the other one. Her tweet, and I'll throw up a picture in the final podcast and everything. Her latest tweet, which was deleted, as you mentioned, was Covington's finest throwing up the new Nazi sign. And it's Covington basketball team going like this, right?
The three-pointers. That's right.
That's right. So immediately people started tweeting at her with pictures of famous basketball players like Curry, Stephen Curry and stuff doing this, right? And they're like, oh, so suddenly Stephen Curry is a racist and everything, or a Nazi and everything? And they showed like that it means three-pointer, and of course she deleted it because this woman, as you mentioned, is trying to stay relevant as much as possible and trying to cause some type of controversy with these kids wherever she can, and she gets proven wrong. Again, a useful idiot.
I believe that would be the shot in the other foot. This time.
Yeah. Now she's hobbling on her knees and stuff, which we won't get into. Okay. Speaking of that type of disaster, let's take a look. You may not know who Michael Rappaport is.
The actor?
Yes.
I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's a douche.
Okay.
All right, I'm just gonna say it.
I haven't heard any of his commentary lately or anything.
Yeah,
that
let's
he's been
see.
saying
Let's see
or-
what he said about the Covington Catholic boys and how he approached talking about kids.
You see the video of these Catholic school teenage fuckboys, hand jobs, harassing, getting in the face of these Native American people? Check this out. You little shit stain. You got no fucking life. Go play some video games. Go try to bird dog some chicks, you fucking little creeps. Shorty shit stain. Hand job. Catholic school cuck. Boy. Huh? Where's these people's parents? You little fucking scumbag. MAGA hat wearing shit stains. This is what you do for fun. You're 16, 17 years old, and that's fun to you? That's what your life is? You fucking loser. You little Kentucky Catholic school sucker.
Beautiful.
That kind of speaks for itself as to why he's not relevant anymore.
Yeah, it's been a long time since Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about this for one. The language leaves some to be desired, I would say. You know?
Yeah.
Very disturbing how he's talking about children, right? But beyond that, the guy seems to be talking about things and then in the middle of what appears to be, even though disgusting commentary in a coherent sentence, stops, says some random crap, then goes back into a sentence and then random crap again, and can't formulate an idea at all, and has to cut his video back and forth on the things that he's saying. Like, this guy, now I see why he needs cue cards as a person in his job, because this guy can't formulate anything. And the way he's talking about children, as you said, speaks for itself.
Yes.
Right?
What has he done in the last 20 years?
Not much. I looked up his IMDb, and the guy is
20+
very
years.
irrelevant. He shows up on podcasts and stuff like that. Podcasts, stupid things.
What a ridiculous, ridiculous thing.
How about this one? Well, we were talking about free speech, right?
Right.
An SNL writer offers blowjobs to anyone who will punch the MAGA kid in the face. That is a payment of sorts and a call to action. Guess what? Not constitutionally protected free speech. Okay? So this is Sarah Beatty, who was an SNL writer, in a now deleted tweet said, "I will blow whoever manages to punch that MAGA kid in the face."
Wow.
Lovely.
Hey now.
Yep. Okay, so this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of the things that I can share. Okay, let's see. Some of the tweets that were put out by people. This guy, Jim Hansen, broke down all of the things that were going on and how wrong they were. So, in this case, this was a text message between, I believe, Joey. Crap, hold on. Joey Salads is this guy's name, between him and one of the kids. He said, this is one of the kids, Lincoln, said, "This is where the drummer was at first, and we were all standing there doing school cheers, and he started walking through our section banging on his drum, and the drummer walked up to the kid and got in his face, not the other way around, and as you can see, the kid just stood there, and nobody chanted 'Build the wall.' We all just stood there and watched." And this Joey Salads must have responded, "Why were you guys there, and what were you chanting?" The kid said, "Our school is really big on school spirit, and we always do cheers when we're all together. They were just simple school spirit cheers. They weren't racist or offensive."
And wasn't that their meetup spot for their ride home?
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that in a second here. He said, "When he banged the drum, were you guys mocking him or just joining in?" This guy said, "We were on the Abraham Lincoln steps and nobody was mocking him. We were just like yelling and getting hype because he was right in the middle of our whole school." So we're going to get to that in a second, too, on exactly what they thought he was doing. So that was the response from the kids and everything. Let me just see if I can see.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So Nathan Phillips is the Native American I believe, I think his name should be Chief Running Mouth.
Yes. I believe it should be Chief Crying Wolf.
Yeah. So this guy has shown up at Occupy things, protest. He had an incident. So listen to this one. Let's talk about Nathan Phillips for a second here. He had an incident back in 2015, I believe it was, where he was supposedly walking through a neighborhood and saw like a frat party on a college campus going on in the backyard, where all the boys were dressed up as Native Americans, had body paint on and feathers and stuff. And he stopped and he said, "What do you guys think you're doing?" And they supposedly said, "We're honoring people like you." And he's like, "You're not honoring me. You're being racist." And they got upset with him, threw a beer can at him, and it was heading for his head. He backed up and it hit him in the chest instead. And he reported this to the college. The college investigated. By the time someone showed up, there was no party. There was no evidence of a party, coincidentally, right? Mm-hmm. How? First of all, listen, if there's a college party, typically you're going to find red cups and stuff like that around for at least another week. They're not going to college boys are not going to clean up that well. Okay. So that leads me to suspect number one. Okay. But there's been a college investigation. Nothing turned up from it. And there hasn't been anything reported about that since then. Okay. So already Chief Running Mouth here has been shown to be an activist that has gotten himself into trouble before and has certainly gone out and stirred the pot to do things in the past and bring attention to things that might not be true.
Yeah,
might not. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I won't say he's a liar right now.
Might be fibbing a little bit.
Yeah. But here's what we have. After this whole incident was reported on with this video that was released, a full-length video was released of the whole thing. Here's what's happening. There's a big setup to this, okay? For about 40 minutes prior to these kids even getting to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, there was a Black Hebrew Israelite group that was there that I believe had a permit to be there, not sure, to protest,
okay,
that were basically, the best way of putting it would probably be they're the black equivalent of the Westboro Baptist Church in regards to their tactics and everything, spewing hateful things. As I said, I sat through the 2 hours of footage to dissect everything prior to coming on tonight and looking up all these articles and everything. So I had to sit through what these guys were saying. And one of the things that happened was, I think a chaperone from the kids group showed up prior to the kids getting there, and these guys were yelling about how the Bible calls for action against people, right? Or I'm sorry, not the Bible, the Old Testament, because they're Hebrew, right? So what happened though is they're yelling hateful things, and one of the guys in the crowd, who I think is a chaperone, yells back to them, "Where do you find hate in the Bible?" And he goes, "Oh, hold on a second." And he starts throwing out verses at him, right? Which to me are way out of context, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, do this and then there will be peace. Like, people have to die and then there will be life, and like all this other stuff. I don't know the exact quote, so I'm not going to pretend to know either. But
right.
I looked it up myself while I was researching this to see what he was going to be quoting from. And I'm like, I get how you could grossly misinterpret this, but you're wrong. You know what I mean? Because these things are rectified through other things that feed into it in the Bible or in the Old Testament. So we're going through all this, and this Black Hebrew group is doing their thing. So let's take a look at the video of them prior to the kids getting there. And then the kids get there. It's a couple of them are trickling in because they had split off into all their own groups and everything. And they all start meeting up at the stairs. And this is the first couple that trickle in and what happens with them as this group is taunting them. And the things that the Black Israelites are saying to these kids, and the kids are not responding. Okay.
Chapter 3, verse 8.
Look, we got the Trump supporters. He want to cover his head up.
And a time to hate.
And a time for what?
To hate.
A time for what?
too. Hey, there's no.
Why don't you uncover that hat? The hell with that water.
What you say?
See how you got these pompous bastards come down here in the middle of a native rally with their dirty ass hat on, with their dusty ass hat on, little dusty ass animals.
There's a time for. How can we love somebody that has a perpetually hatred for us? I see you. You want to wave high? A bunch of incest babies. A bunch of babies made out of incest. Right, trailer park babies. This is what America make America great looks like. When was it great? When was it great? I dare you to say it. Right, exactly. Since it started, since you had us in slavery, you bastard.
Right.
That's the only time that it was great. Look where we at, where? Look where we at. Look at my people. Look at my people. Best nation that's gonna die. Go ahead.
If this the best nation, why y'all can't get rid of lice season? If y'all the best nation, get rid of that damn lice on your back. Get rid of lice. Get rid of lice season. Goddamn dog. Get rid of your lice.
Y'all sound like a bunch of dogs. A bunch of hyenas. Yeah, a bunch of dogs. A bunch of hyenas. But see, there's a reason why. There's a reason why y'all outnumber us and y'all keep y'all distance. There's a reason for that. You know why? Because you don't see the angels around us. You don't see angels around us. You couldn't touch us if you wanted to. You couldn't touch us if you wanted to.
Hey, look at these sea of demons. Hey, look out.
But they don't see the angels.
Look at this,
Get this crap.
Look at this.
Wait, who say the pull-up boys? Yo, who say the pull-up boys gonna pull up and turn it up? That's shit for Lord.
Hey, I'm turning up with Esau. Esau on this caveman thing. I'm turning up. Cause you know what? You dirty bastards better be ready. You better be ready.
Let's put a little bit more context behind this, okay? What's happening here is this is about 38 minutes into the video that this starts, that I cut some clips from, right? And there's a lot of stuff in between there that you can see cuts, and I'm being very honest with you. I am not manipulating the footage except for to cut away parts that nothing's really happening, right? It's just like nonsense stuff, right? I'm cutting to parts that are relevant to the conversation. Prior to the 38-minute mark in this video, that is actually, you can see in the end there, because he flipped the camera on the phone and everything, is being filmed or videoed by the black group. Prior to that 38-minute mark, they are antagonizing people left and right, whoever happens to be walking by, spewing hateful things about them, and they themselves get into an altercation with the Native American group, who also happen to be there protesting. First of all, how much have you heard in the media about this black group being there at all?
I think I might have, out of all the stories I've read, I think I heard it once.
Right. But they are the instigators in this situation, right? And they're not mentioned at all.
Yeah.
So what we have is they are antagonizing the Native American group. The Native American group continually says, hey guys, nicely, can you guys please stop? This is ridiculous. We're just trying to do our thing over here. You guys are doing your thing. There's no reason to be attacking us the way that you are. They continue. Guy comes back again. He says, guys, please, being nice, and I'm being honest about this, and the reason why I was bringing up that I've cut this, go back and watch the 2 hours of footage yourself. If you think that I'm manipulating this to look one way or the other, I am not. Go look at it. The video evidence is out there, right? Finally, it gets to a point where it gets heated between the Native American group and the Black Israelite group, and they go at each other. Not physically, but it's about to get to that. And the way that it's diffused is this black group keeps on diverting the attention to the MAGA hat kids. And they're like, why are you attacking us? You should be attacking them over there because they're wearing MAGA hats. They're talking about making America great again. They're the ones that stole your land, right? They keep on. They're trying to use the anger of the Native American group to go after the white guys, right, and everything, right? So that leads up to this Covington boys are all piling in. All their groups are finally meeting up. This happens to be the designated area per chaperone for them to meet up on the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial to actually get the bus to go back to Kentucky, right? So you don't want to leave anyone behind. You have to have a meetup spot. And as parents, we always talk about that, don't we? If you get lost, meet me here.
Yes.
Right? So these kids happen to have the Lincoln Memorial as their setup for where they're going to get the bus and everything. It's not that they went there specifically to look for an instigating position or situation or circumstance in order to go after a certain group or anything. It just happened to be that they had to meet up there.
Right.
At no point in time were either of these groups moving toward each other at all, by the way, too. I would point that out. So this is what has led up to what we see in that other video, okay? Putting a little bit more context behind it. Now, one of the things that you also need to be aware of is that these boys specifically went and asked their chaperone, listening to the vile, hateful, racist, disgusting things that this black Israelite group was saying to them when they're just standing there waiting around. Some of the kids went to a chaperone and said, "Do you mind if we start our school chants and rally cries to drown out as a majority the voices of these people that are saying disgusting things?" So now you're starting to see towards the end of that video, these kids like bouncing around doing their rally chant and everything. And they're doing that to drown out the noise of this instigating group that's trying to start trouble.
It's hurling insults at them and everything else.
Yeah. So we get to the point now where the school's doing their chant, right? It happens to be an interaction going back and forth between the black Israelite group and these teens. After they've been having their interaction, the black Israelite group, with the Native Americans. This is where Chief Running Mouth comes in, okay? So let's take a look at what led to the exact moments of what the video that went viral is, right? We're led to believe that these kids are surrounding this Native American elder and instigating him and threatening him, right? Let's see who walked up to who and what actually happened there.
See how much they respect you, Israel? Look all of them. All these Americans. Go ahead, what you say? That's right. Here come Gad. Here come Gad. Here come Gad. Look at our Make America Great Again hats. Look at the hats. Look at the hats. We ain't taking. Look, we not taking. Look at Gad. That's right, Gad. Look at Gad. Look at Gad not playing. He came to the rescue. Our elder right there. Look at him. Yeah, y'all better not touch him. Y'all better not touch him.
He walked up to them. Not only walked up to them, he walked way out of his way to go up to these students and head straight for a crowd. And if you look in the video, if you were to look at the steps up to the Lincoln Memorial, these kids happen to be crowding the left side of the steps, and there's a big wide open space open on the right side of the steps, right? So he heads towards the crowd. They're in the middle of them doing their school chant. And what is he doing? Banging his drum. And what is he banging his drum like? The school chant. These kids are bouncing up and down, and he happens to be matching the rhythm of them as he's doing the drum. These kids, for obvious reasons, and have said so in interviews and everything, thought this guy, who wasn't part of the Black Israelite group that was causing trouble, is getting in on the fun of the school chant. And this guy's awesome. He's beating along to our school rally chants and everything. Yeah. And you can actually see them going, yeah, yeah, and they're bouncing to the beat and everything. And they're getting into it, right? They think that this guy is not part of that group, and he's getting involved with these kids and is on their side because he's obviously seen the interaction so far between these kids and the Black Israelite group as they're standing there doing this stuff, right? Now let me jump back a little bit here and say something a little bit controversial that someone else actually mentioned on the radio that I listened to, but I had been doing days of prep on this, like I said, so there's going to be repeats on programs, you know. Actually, he didn't go into the specifics of this. Martin Luther King, okay? Martin Luther King, as we've talked about in the past with regards to comparing Martin Luther King to Malcolm X and everything, and in the nerdy way, breaking those down into the X-Men characters of Magneto and Professor X and everything, right? And what the dichotomy of those differences are and how they approach social issues, right? One believes that violence has to be done in order to achieve something. The other one is a nonviolent approach and try to change the hearts of individuals, right? Now, the interesting thing about Martin Luther King is when I watched the movie Selma. Have you ever seen Selma? No. I believe it was Selma. There were two movies I watched at the same time that kind of were almost a continuation of the story and not done by the same producers or anything. And it was actually really fabulous how these two kind of like meshed with each other in regards to the timeline of everything. The interesting thing about Martin Luther King that not many people learn about, or maybe people do know it, especially in the Black community and everything, Martin Luther is awesome. I think Martin Luther King was awesome, right? But the perception of Martin Luther King is he didn't believe in violence. And from what I saw in Selma and everything, that's not true, right? Martin Luther King understood the difference on how violence is perceived, right? Because at that time, no matter what happens, as in, obviously media hasn't changed. Let's just put it that way. If something is shown on the news and a fight breaks out and all you see is the fight, they're going to blame it on the black people. Absolutely. At that point in time, right? And that's all they're going to show. What a coincidence that this is happening the way it is, right? But Martin Luther King knew something. He told his followers to be nonviolent. He said, if people attack you, basically take the beating. Because if we don't act violently towards that and we have peaceful protests and take the beating and we don't fight back, the media have no choice but to cover that, if they cover it at all, that we were the ones that were taking the beating. So in essence, Martin Luther King actually did believe in violence, but used it as a propaganda tool to further the cause, which was a good cause. Listen, it takes some willpower to take a beating and not do anything back. And people obviously died from that. Yes. You know, to support the civil rights movement and everything. Amazing stuff. I'm not diminishing Martin Luther King's journey at all on what he went through to achieve what he did in the end. But isn't it amazing that we then go to a clip that goes viral this weekend of students standing there, and now we see that they were approached and they were the ones instigated, that stand there and don't do a thing, even when someone's up in their face doing things. These kids took the passed down wisdom, I guess you could say, either knowingly or unknowingly, of Martin Luther King and did nothing. They stood there. The one kid that is being portrayed in the media as a racist and everything was sitting there with a bit of a smirk on his face, and it looks douchey in that original video. But when you look at the context of the way everything was put into play and everything, and you realize that this Native American guy was working his way through directly to a crowd and then through a crowd, the boys were moving aside and everything because he was kind of going. There's multiple other videos that I didn't throw in there of different angles of, because people were recording on their phones all over the place. This guy's moving through the crowd, Nathan, and he's banging his drum. He's like kind of waving back and forth, weaving through the crowd, and the boys are moving left and right. They're allowing him to go through, right? But he sees Nick Sandman and directly locks eye contact and goes straight towards him. And at that point, if you were Nick and he's locking eyes with you and coming at you, you would assume this guy wants something from me, right? Approaches him and starts banging the drum in his face and chanting. I think any rational person that could keep their cool in that situation, because at that point you would have to be looking at what's going on and what led up to that, you would be a pretty confused individual. What the heck is what is going on? I thought this guy was coming in here to do the school chants with us and everything, which it apparently seemed like at first, and now he's banging a drum in my face. If you're put into an awkward situation like that, it's kind of natural to have a weird smirk on your face, like, what is going on here? You know what I mean? So that has led up to this. Okay, do you have anything to say about this so far?
I think the kid showed remarkable restraint.
Yes.
I can't tell you what I would have done in the same situation. I have a little bit of a temper.
Me too.
Okay? And if you're invading my space like that, I might snatch that drum away from you.
Well, there's a reason why I have a concealed permit. Let's just put it that way. So, but you don't know the intention of this guy at the time, right?
Right.
But there's a big misperception on what's going on up until this point. Number one, people are saying that the teens in the original video that was showed on BuzzFeed, the people that were there are on the other side, are saying that people were chanting "Build the Wall." Now, I sat through 2 hours of footage.
Yeah, I've yet to see that.
It was yelled.
Okay.
Guess who yelled it?
Who?
The leader of the Black Israelite group. Right? He kept on saying, oh, yeah, you want to build that wall, build that wall, build that wall, right? And so people are hearing that in the background of the video, but you can clearly hear who's saying it.
And attributing it to the students.
Yeah. Going back to what that Muslim woman, Oman representative said about it's not rape if they enjoy it, apparently someone did say that as well. But it was not someone from the school. So she's attributing that as a lie to this group of teens, right? So what we have so far is false information that these kids are antagonizing a Native American elder, which they're not, that they're yelling, "Build the wall," which they're not, and there's video evidence that you can sit through and take your damn time, and if you can find it, cut it up into a segment, send it to me, because I guarantee I'll bet you $1. The first person to find it, I'll send you $1 if you can show me that these kids were actually screaming that.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like when I'm watching everything, I'm like, I don't hear "Build the Wall." I didn't catch that part of the clip. You know.
Yep. So we've gotten up to this point. Now we're at the part where we have caught up now to where the original video is that went viral. Okay. Nick is standing there. Has this Nathan Phillips, chief running mouth, in his face, drumming in his face, inches away from his face. Where they cut out is literally a student behind him starts interacting with another member of the Native American group, and the Native American is saying, "You guys are on our land. This is our land. You need to go back to Europe." Right? And the student is like, "What are you talking about?" You know, he's like questioning the guy, not antagonizing him or arguing with him or anything. He's like, "What are you talking about? Like, I think he said something along the lines of, if you believe that we're all a people that started in Africa and we spread out and went our different ways and everything, then we're all kind of here by happenstance of coming to this land." Mm-hmm. Right? And Nick, at that point in the video, turns around and basically goes, don't interact with them. Don't cause this to go any further. He steps in as a peacekeeper and is like, "Don't do this.
Right.
Don't go after them. Just let it go." Right? And shortly right after that, then Nick turns around and he says, "Okay, guys, let's go to the buses." Okay? And they leave the situation. As you said, an amazing amount of restraint from these teens. Right? And listen, teenage boys, I expect teenage boys to do some stupid things sometimes. Right? Things that might come off as smug and racist and stuff like that. They didn't do that here.
No,
there's no evidence of it.
When the video started, I said, "Oh, this is not going to go well."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The first clip that was circulated, the viral clip.
Right.
I thought, "Oh boy."
Now let me jump back. to Joe Rogan's podcast when I listened to him talk about this. Very disappointed in Joe Rogan, okay? For all the effort that he puts into listening to both sides and trying to find common ground and everything, he basically said the media outlets got this wrong in a very bad way and went after these teens when they weren't supposed to. But in essence, basically said, but these teens were kind of a-holes for wearing those hats. Right? And I'm like, what, Joe? You're going to go after kids for an article of clothing. That's what you're going to do. And then the guest was like, yeah, basically there's some people in the media and within this stuff that I'm looking at here that say that the red MAGA hat is the new KKK hood.
Remember, it's better to be morally accurate than
than
factually correct.
So shame on Joe Rogan for the way
terrible.
It was horrible. So now, while Nathan Phillips and Nick Sandman are having this confrontation in the circle of people, right? Here's what's happening on the outskirts at the same time, okay? The Black Israelite group is still antagonizing the kids and going after the two African-American black, or as my buddy Kira would say, brown students in the group, and antagonizing them on the outskirts. This is still going on, and as I said, the media is not covering these people, right? So let's take a look at what they're saying to them.
He said, this racist, what the hell is all this?
Right.
What the hell is you see a crackers with Make America Great hat on? Yeah, you's a cracker. You's a cracker. All of you crackers.
Oh, they're going to call him.
One black.
They're going to call one black man.
DJ West, son.
Y'all got one nigga in the crowd, huh?
Y'all got one nigga in the crowd.
One nigga, huh?
Y'all got one nigga in the crowd. Oh, you got two niggas in the crowd. Oh, two niggas in the crowd. Look at this simple group.
And how many, and I'm going to say a pause moment. Oh, come on. Come on, shorty. Come on, shorty. Come on, man.
Get out, nigga. Yo, nigga. Get out, nigga. Get out. What? Get out, nigga. You ain't see the movie? Why you being mean? Get out, nigga.
That's right.
The 16-year-old kid died.
Get out, nigga. That's the only one y'all can bring to the front.
Hey, we got one home, but he ain't here.
Oh, y'all got one home. You see that? You see that? But we're racist. But we're the racists. Ain't that so?
Unbelievable. Okay, so the Black Israelite group is calling all the white students a bunch of crackers and a bunch of stuff, this and that. Crackers, sorry, there's a difference. And then starts saying the N-word to all the two black students.
Yeah.
And what did the kids say? I heard the one go, "Why are you being mean? Why are you talking like that about a 16-year-old kid?"
How remarkably offensive and how remarkably racist.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, what do these white kids do? They grab their black friend student and pull him into the crowd and protect him. What a bunch of racists.
Yeah.
And what are the Black Israelite groups saying? Get out here, N-word, get out here. Like, they're trying to antagonize this kid to get out of the group of white kids to mock him and go after him. And by the way, I don't know if you saw in some of the videos that I clipped together and everything, there's a guy riding around on like a one-wheel scooter and stuff like that. He happened to be like kind of smirking at the Black Israelite group and going around them. And at one point in time, the camera guy goes, "I'm waiting for that F word to get over here so I can knock him out and give him a beating." So these guys are ready and willing to be militant towards individuals and use violence, okay? Unbelievable. Okay. Jake Tapper released a statement from Nick that said, it's a statement basically kind of defending himself because at this point he's being doxxed and everything and people are going after him. He said, "I'm providing this factual account of what happened on Friday afternoon." It was Friday. Okay, there you go. "At the Lincoln Memorial to correct misinformation and outright lies being spread about my family and me. I am the student in the video who was confronted by the Native American protester. I arrived at the Lincoln Memorial at 4:30 p.m. I was told to be there by 5:30 p.m. when our buses were due to leave Washington for the trip back to Kentucky. We had been attending the March for Life rally and then had to split up into smaller groups to do some sightseeing. When we arrived, we noticed 4 African American protesters who were also on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. I'm not sure what they were protesting, and I did not interact with them. I did hear them direct derogatory insults at our school group. The protesters said hateful things. They called us racist, bigots, white crackers, faggots, and incest kids, which you actually heard in that one clip. You use a bunch of incest kids, kids born of incest, or whatever they were saying. They also taunted an African-American student from my school by telling him that we would harvest his organs. I have no idea what that insult means, but it was startling to hear. Because we were being loudly attacked and taunted in public, a student in our group asked one of our teacher chaperones for permission to begin our school spirit chants to counter the hateful things that were being shouted at our group. The chants were commonly used at sporting events. They are all positive in nature and sound like what you would hear at any high school. Our chaperone gave us permission to use our school chants. We would not have done that without obtaining permission from the adults in charge of our group. Sorry, my eyes are starting to bug out because this is small words here. At no point in time did I hear any student chant anything other than the school spirit chants. I did not witness or hear any students chant "Build the Wall" or anything hateful or racist at any time. Assertions to the contrary are simply false. Our chants were loud because we wanted to drown out the hateful comments that were being shouted at us by the protesters. After a few minutes of chanting, the Native American protesters, who I hadn't previously noticed, approached our group. The Native American protesters had drums and were accompanied by at least one person with a camera. The protester everyone has seen in the video began playing his drum as he waded into the crowd, which parted for him. I did not see anyone try to block his path. He locked eyes with me and approached me, coming within inches of my face. He played his drum for the entire time he was in my face. I never interacted with this protester. I did not speak to him. I did not make any hand gestures or other aggressive moves. To be honest, I was startled and confused as to why he had approached me. We had already been yelled at by another group of protesters, and when the second group approached, I was worried that a situation was getting out of control where adults were attempting to provoke teenagers. I believe that by remaining motionless and calm, I was helping to diffuse the situation. I realized everyone had cameras and that perhaps a group of adults was trying to provoke a group of teenagers into a larger conflict. I said a silent prayer that the situation would not get out of hand. During the period of the drumming, a member of the protesters' entourage began yelling at a fellow student that we stole the land and that we should go back to Europe. I heard one of my fellow students begin to respond. I motioned to my classmate and tried to get him to stop engaging with this protester, as I was still in the mindset that we needed to calm down the tensions. I never felt like I was blocking the Native American protester. He did not make any attempt to go around me. It was clear to me that he had singled me out for a confrontation, although I'm not sure why. The engagement ended when one of our teachers told me the buses had arrived and it was time to go. I obeyed my teacher and simply walked to the buses. At that moment, I thought I had diffused the situation by remaining calm, and I was thankful nothing physical had occurred. I never understood why either of the two groups of protesters were engaging with us or exactly what they were protesting at the Lincoln Memorial. We were simply there to meet a bus, not become central players in a media spectacle. This is the first time in my life I've ever encountered any sort of public protest, let alone this kind of confrontation or demonstration. I was not intentionally making faces at the protester. I did smile at one point because I wanted him to know that I was not going to become angry, intimidated, or be provoked into a larger confrontation. I am a faithful Christian and practicing Catholic, and I always try to live up to the ideals my faith teaches me, to remain respectful of others, and to take no action that would lead to conflict or violence. Remind me about the Catholic part and Joe Rogan, too. I harbor no ill will for this person. I respect this person's right to protest and engage in free speech activities, and I support his chanting on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial any day of the week. I believe he should rethink his tactics of invading the personal space of others, but that's his choice to make. I am being called every name in the book, including a racist, and I will not stand for this mob-like character assassination of my family's name. My parents were not on the trip, and I strive to represent my family in a respectful way in all public settings. I have received physical and death threats via social media, as well as hateful insults. One person threatened to harm me at school, and one person claims to live in my neighborhood. My parents are receiving death and professional threats because of the social media mob that has formed over this issue. I love my school, my teachers, and my classmates. I work hard to achieve good grades and to participate in several extracurricular activities. I am mortified that so many people have come to believe something that did not happen. That students from my school were chanting or acting in a racial fashion toward African American or Native American. I did not do that, do not have hateful things in my heart, and did not witness any of my classmates doing that. I cannot speak for everyone, only for myself, but I can tell you that my experience with Covington Catholic is that students are respectful of all races and cultures. We also support everyone's right to free speech. I am not going to comment on the words or account of Mr. Phillips, as I do not know him and would not presume to know what is in his heart or mind. Nor am I going to comment further on other protesters, as I do not know their hearts or minds either.
What about Joe Rogan?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I almost forgot about that. So Joe Rogan, on top of talking about the hats, then was like, part of the problem, too, here is that these kids go to a Catholic school, and everybody knows that there's a big problem in the Catholic Church with them being child effers. So he's like, so they're representing a bunch of child effers too. And it's like, whoa, you are conflating some very serious accusations on things that are totally unrelated to this issue and bringing them in and basically supporting these kids while also blasting these kids for things that are out of their control and don't even deal with this subject. It was, Joe Rogan, I like your podcast, but you were disgraceful in what you said about those kids.
I found a lot of the media reaction to be disgraceful.
Yeah, no kidding.
All this.
So let's go to an interview of Chief Running Mouth and what he had to say after. Oh, no. Before that, let's see what Chief Running Mouth said at the Lincoln Memorial. At the time of this, he was basically interviewed by the same person who took the original viral video.
Okay.
And what he had to say after that, right after that, as he had that classic kind of Indian tear going down.
When I was there singing, and I heard them saying, build that wall, this is indigenous lands. We're not supposed to have walls here. We never did for millennium.
So right off the bat, he's the one that's claiming right off the bat, I heard them say, build that wall. And, we don't believe in walls. Yeah, exactly. Yes, wiping away tears and everything. Completely wrong. Video evidence shows that, right? Let's see what he had to say in this interview, though, because this is fascinating. The way he tried. They basically, for context, this is him being interviewed after evidence comes out proving him wrong. And this guy is a liberal activist sticking to his guns. Like, no matter what, you could have the evidence thrown right at you, proving you wrong, and he is going to stick to his guns on this. So let's hear what he had to say on this.
I spoke to 64-year-old Nathan Phillips, a Marine Corps vet who served in the Vietnam War, about his confrontation with the high school junior.
He put out a statement which flips the narrative, says he's the one who was there trying to be peaceful.
Are you saying that you don't believe what he was saying?
Well, I guess I'm just going to have to say that. No, I don't believe it.
You could see Phillips beating his ceremonial drum as he approaches the students. He says to act as peacemaker. Phillips told me that as he tried to walk up the Lincoln Memorial steps, the student blocked his path, forcing the standoff.
He's blocking my path. And then I'm supposed to go around him? Why?
Oh, I got a response to that one, Nathan. Because you were the one that walked into a crowd. And if you really wanted to not have a blocked path to get up those stairs, you would have gone to the right instead of the left, right? So this guy is saying that Nick flipped the narrative and turned himself into the victim, when really it was Chief Running Mouth that was the victim in this case, but that he was the one being instigated. And instantly, Inside Edition, I think it was, comes back with, here's video of Mr. Phillips walking directly toward a crowd, instigating them, going deep into the crowd, and getting into a standoff with Nick Sandman, right? And as we mentioned, if someone locks eyes with you and walks right up to you, you're not thinking, like, look, if I'm looking at you and I walk up to you, you're going to think I want to interact with you in some sort of way, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm looking past you and I'm walking and you see the line of sight that I have, you're assuming that I'm going to go one way or the other, specifically probably the direction that I'm looking in,
and
right?
I'm probably going to step aside.
You're probably going to step aside, right? So this guy's caught in his lies. And he's saying that this kid's false in that he was trying to be the peaceful one. Completely untrue on the Native Americans' part. But here's the thing, and this is one of the main points I want to get to tonight in regards to all this. Besides the spectacle of lies from both this individual, Nathan Phillips, and the media getting this horribly, horribly wrong, right? This is identity politics, right? What is the one thing, as we mentioned before, that we didn't hear about in this whole story? That you only heard one time?
What, build the wall?
No. So, I kind of put you on the spot for that, so I'm sorry. But basically, the Black Israelite group, right? Why isn't the media talking about them? Well, you don't want to be attacking a group of black guys, right? Because they're saying hateful things about white people. That's a narrative that we don't want to touch. If it's the other way around, if we can find video of the white teens instigating against the black group, then that's something that we can show, because that is obviously the narrative of today. But then we have the Native American group, right? It's what has this become? This has become a story about white teens against a Native American group, and in the background, a black activist group as well, right? But it's obviously white male teens that are Catholic, right? All check marks against them right off the bat, that are the instigators in this case, right? And the media fell for it. They fell for a narrative of identity politics, and they're having a hard time coming back from it right now, because what are they going to do? Label a Native American man as a liar, despite the evidence all pointing towards it, right? It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, you can't.
Because you have set the trap as the media now that everything in society right now, Trump, build the wall, is against Mexicans. That's how you read into that, right? We have set the narrative now that the trap is everything is about identity politics. Look at the transgender stuff. Identity politics. Now we have a circle point to move around, a narrative that identity politics is always at the center of things, right? Which is why they feel more empowered than ever to get away with identity politics, name calling. You're a racist because you believe in a policy? No. Yeah, it's dog whistling.
Sure.
Right? So again, we kind of have to be the ducks letting the water roll off our backs and everything with that, but it is what it is. So that was his interview, and frankly, this guy, look, it's very easy. You come out and say, we were very wrong, we apologize, and we recognize that Mr. Phillips is a liar. A downright dirty, sleazy liar. And it's okay to say that. You know why? Because like we were talking about with the toxic masculinity stuff earlier, there are bad people in every group, right?
Absolutely.
There are toxic people in every type of category that you can go with. And that does not exclude Native Americans just because they had a hard time in the past.
Correct.
Right? So there's that. Guess what else these kids were compared to over the weekend?
What?
Brett Kavanaugh. Right? These kids, while after the video came out and proved to be doing nothing back towards the Native American, were showing their white privilege and patriarchy, because by standing there and smirking, they were signaling to the Native American that they can just leave and it's going to roll off their backs, and the Native American has no recourse because as white males, they get to go throughout society and can forget about this whole interaction when they get on the buses anyway because they are white male. That is what one person said on Twitter about them. Now, what's interesting about the Brett Kavanaugh situation and the comparison is the fact that these kids, I think, are a good comparison with Brett Kavanaugh, right? See, the situation with Brett Kavanaugh is that Kavanaugh was accused of a bunch of things that he did without any evidence.
Right.
Right? And we're supposed to go based on the assumption of people that he did things that were wrong. These kids are accused of not that similar of a thing, but atrocious things, being racist and antagonizing a Native American group. Where the left gets it wrong is we actually have the evidence this time, right? So that narrative falls apart in this case.
Yep.
All right, let's move on here. There's a story after story. I'm gonna start wrapping this up, but basically that kid, when they were trying to dox him, the main one, Nick, they found another kid that looked like him and went after him and tore his whole family apart. They were supposed to be celebrating a marriage over the weekend and instead had to come together as a family and deal with people antagonizing and sending them death threats when it wasn't even the right kid.
That's insane.
And that's what this kind of stuff can lead to, right? Patricia Heaton had a great response to the media after reporting falsely. She was on, what was that show? Everybody Loves Raymond. She was the mother on that show. Okay. She said, on Twitter, I'm seeing what I believe to be sincere apologies from some journalists and verified media persons regarding their lack of professionalism in rushing to judgment in regards to the Covington Catholic situation. These apologies are welcome and necessary, but they don't address the damage that cannot be undone, which was inflicted upon young people who are about to embark on adulthood, applying to colleges, looking for employment, etc. These young people will forever have these smears follow through their life every time they proffer their resume with the word Covington on it. It will also affect anyone who ever has or ever will attend that school. The damage is incalculable. And yet, those who perpetuated this destruction, no matter how unintended, are still at their jobs with nary a consequence for their reckless behavior.
That's a good point.
It seems to me that an apology without some kind of accompanying action which speaks to the seriousness of their transgression, a suspension from work, some loss of pay, renders any apology empty. Some kind of compensatory action would go a long way in signaling their recognition of the seriousness of their transgression and help to restore what's left of the public's very fragile trust in their reputations as trustworthy journalists. However, I don't believe that this will happen. Attorney Robert Barnes says, I will represent pro-life Catholic children for free if they sue the New York Times hack Haberman. Okay, so someone that wrote the article about them being the instigators and everything, which leads me to an overall point. I believe that these two are obviously connected, right? Patricia Heaton is talking about the responsibilities of journalism and getting things wrong and how an apology is not going to do anything, right? Because once it's out there, it's out there. And this guy's saying, we're going to sue, I will help them sue for free at least one media organization that did this false reporting, okay? My point to this should be a wake-up call to the world right now, but especially here in America, that this will not be tolerated, that we cannot continue to do journalism the way it's been done for the past decade or so with jump the shark journalism and hoping to get it right a couple days later and correct things and just say, hey, it's out there. The truth is out there, Well, the lie's out there even bigger because that's what sticks in people's minds, right? And I could point to story after story. For instance, back in the 90s, the Thomas Jefferson story that came out that said Thomas Jefferson slept with one of the slaves and had kids, and there's a lineage of people from that. People still think that's true. You know why that was put out there? Because it was released around the same time by an organization that was trying to defend Bill Clinton with the whole Monica Lewinsky scandal, and had to retract that story days later, but that doesn't make the front page news, right? So people still will talk about how Thomas Jefferson slept with slaves and had this whole affair and everything, when in actuality, there was a blood test done, and it was Thomas Jefferson's uncle that did that. But we're supposed to believe...
Doesn't fit the narrative.
No, doesn't fit the narrative and everything. And the media gets away with this. My point being on this, we need to, as a country, come together and support legal action against mass class action lawsuits against these media empires that continue to push false media, false news, fake news out there that destroy people's lives, and in their wake can say, well, we moved on to a new story. It doesn't matter. We'll throw out a correction and maybe people will read it, maybe they won't.
Sure, because those kids haven't moved on.
No, hell they have. Right. Yeah, they have to live the rest of their lives with dealing with the people that won't ever see the correction, don't care to read about the correction, right? And I believe it's time that we had lawyers file libel and slander lawsuits against media companies for millions, if not billions of dollars, until we can set these media organizations straight and scare them into reporting the news for once in their damn lives after the last decade. Because destroying the lives of American people, especially children, is the final straw for this kind of crap that's going on right now.
I agree.
It's ridiculous. I am so disgusted with this. This has had me boiling since the time I saw this video, when I just had the question, who started the instigation? I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. It could be the kids that are being jerks. I don't know, but I'd like to see more video. A couple hours later, I see the video. I'm like, wow, this is disgusting. What this country has done and everything. Let me give you another example. And I don't care if my friend is upset with me when I say this. I saw a liberal friend of mine post this article, or this video, this viral video, and he said, like many liberals do in most circumstances, I wish we could all just get along. Why can't we all just get along, right? Instead of beating on a Native American, basically. Being the friend that I am, I believe in productive conversation in private when it comes to friends, okay? I've mentioned this on the podcast before. There were 2 liberal friends of mine that have posted stories of Trump supporters beating up people that are liberal, and those stories were retracted days later to show that those were false accusations. And I private messaged those friends and said, hey, take a look at this. This is not true, and it's obviously fake stories. The Trump supporters did not do that. It's spreading a false narrative about Trump supporters. They are not like that. And I think you should correct your article just so you don't look like an idiot, basically, And so that people that got riled up by your post, that, who knows, look, there could be a psycho on the right, there could be a psycho on the left. If someone reads something and they have tendencies like that, could go after people, right? At least correct it so that people know. Right, so that you can diffuse any future situations based on just your post and who you reach out to. Both of those friends have never corrected anything and refused to acknowledge I even sent them anything. Okay? In this case, I sent this whole long article disproving everything with the video updated and everything, and the notes, the summaries, the interviews, all this stuff on one post. I said, take a look at this. That story is false. These kids are innocent. Just take a look at it. His response to me was, you do know that this is affecting me and my family, right? How? Because my wife works for the welfare office and is not getting paid right now. What? What the hell does this have to do with the government shutdown? And I said, this has nothing to do with that. You are conflating 2 different issues here. These are innocent children that are being accused of racist things right now, and you're spreading that narrative, and you're okay with doing that because the government shut down, which has absolutely nothing to do with it. His response to me was, we will never agree on the issues here. This is the mentality of the left right now. And as I say, I never painted my slogan at the bottom here. My motto for the show, slogan for the show is, the truth is greater than agenda. And right now, with these types of things, those specific scenarios, the left is putting their agenda in front of the truth. And if the truth conflicts with what they're saying, then they don't want to spread the truth at all, right? And what's fascinating about that is these are the same people that would say, well, you know, this is their truth or her truth or his truth, and that's your truth, right? No, that's bullcrap. There is no truth but the truth, and that's it, you know? And we need to get away from that kind of toxic verbiage in our society, because it is misleading, and just our society and culture is in a corkscrew going down bad, because no one knows where to step, no one knows what to say, and we're walking on eggshells, and the language gets all screwed up and everything, and it's like Babel, for crying out loud. We don't know how to talk to each other anymore, you know? And we're so screwed up on how to approach things, we can't even talk to each other anymore. And you damn well can't get the truth through to some of these liberals that are pushing the agenda over the truth.
Yeah, no way.
Unbelievable. And I didn't mention his name there, my friend.
No.
You know, I love him. I love the guy. But I'll be honest with you, if he defriends me for me mentioning the interaction, at this point, I don't care. Because I don't need that kind of toxic crap in my life where someone would willingly lie about children to put them in a dangerous position where they're getting death threats because they're upset about a government shutdown that has nothing to do with it. That's disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's go on here. Tucker Carlson went after the media as well. He said Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, which is the one that the lawyer was suing, suggested the boys needed to be expelled from school. Anna Navarro of CNN called the boys racist and asswipes, then went after their teachers and their parents. Others called for violence against them. CNN legal analyst Bakari Sellers suggested one of the boys should be, quote, punched in the face. Former CNN contributor, Reza Aslan agreed. Aslan asked on Twitter, have you ever seen a more punchable face than this kid? Longtime CNN contributor Kathy Griffin seemed to encourage a mob to rise up and hurt these boys, tweeting, name these kids, I want names, shame them. If you think these effers wouldn't dox you in a heartbeat, think again. We talked about that earlier. She demanded again later in another tweet saying, names please, and stories from people who can identify them and vouch for their identity. Thank you. Hollywood film producer Jack Morrissey, he's the one that did the new Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I saw that.
Tweeted that he wanted the boys killed. MAGA kids go screaming hats first into the wood chipper. He paired that with a graphic photo showing a wood chipper, blood coming out of one end, and basically like MAGA hat kids like going into the wood chipper and everything. How about this? Patton Oswalt, who should be one of those comedians that are funny and everything, he's an asswipe. He is a douche of all douche. Right? He linked to personal information about one of the boys in case anyone wanted to get started on that project. Okay? Unbelievable. There's this whole thing. If you get an opportunity, look up Jeremy McLeland's thread on the 5 stages of grief you shared an internet hoax, and basically owns the Twitter mob on that one. Matt Walsh, talked about the 4 lessons that the media and all of us can learn from this whole situation. Number 1, your social media hot take can wait for a day or two. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Cool the jets.
Yeah.
Get the facts, right? Number 2, white teenage boys are not evil just because they happen to fit those traits, right? They fit your narrative, but that doesn't mean your narrative's right. Number 3, the media is the enemy of the people. Trump was right on that one. right?
Yes.
Jim Acosta asked Sarah Sanders at one point in time, do you believe that the president is correct that the media is the enemy of the people? Well, no, they shouldn't be. They're supposed to be the watchdog of all politicians and report back to us, the people, so we can correct and do things to elect representatives that will actually represent us. They should be on our side. But when you get into opinion and you're spreading false news, then yes, you are the enemy of the people. And that's squarely where they are, and I don't think it will ever get corrected unless we sue the living crap out of these people for libel and slander in cases like this.
Yeah, I think Jim Acosta is useless.
Oh, he's horrible.
Absolutely terrible.
Number 4, and this is a very important one that we've kind of danced around a little tonight. Someone's going to get killed, right? The doxing of people is so irresponsible to put it out there when, like I said, there are crazy people out there that see it as their mission. How about this, for instance? How about crazy people on the right, supposed right? When that whole conspiracy theory about the pizza place down in D.C. that had those child sex slaves underneath, and that guy went in there with a gun, and they said, we don't have a basement. And he's like, show me the basement, you're holding kids. And he started pointing the gun at people. This is the kind of crap that you deal with, and it's going to happen on the left too. One of these kids could end up dead, and that is squarely on the media's shoulders and this lying Native American elder Nathan Phillips. Lying. I'm fired up. I'm sorry. And I haven't let you talk too much.
No.
Before I go on to the next one.
I'm intrigued.
Okay.
I can't believe you did this amount of research on this subject.
We're almost there. How about this? This is according to Red State. This was reported on the 22nd. It said Nathan Phillips refuses offer to meet with the Covington kids because, quote, they stole his narrative.
I read that.
It's
amazing.
He said, it's not the right time, Phillips told the Inquirer on Monday night. I might consider it at some point. There'd have to be certain assurances in place, give and take and understanding. But according to Phillips, it's not yet the time because a statement released by Covington Catholic student Nick Sandman, this is according to Phillips, needs to put out a different statement. That statement was spot on, based on the video shown. How about this? No, I'm not even going to get into that. If you want to look up the authenticity of him being a Vietnam veteran, you can look into that yourself. I don't want to get into conspiracy stuff, but I do think that he has always referred to himself as a Vietnam-era vet, and the media has taken that and turned it into Vietnam vet, which is not the same thing, and I'll leave it at that. You guys can look into that yourself. He said, I'm disappointed with his statement. He didn't accept any responsibility. That lack of responsibility, I don't accept it. F you lying sack
Your
of Indian
whole
crap.
Story is predicated upon a lie.
You are sending up fake news smoke signals, Chief Running Mouth.
Yeah.
Like, this guy might as well be in the same tribe as Elizabeth Warren, honestly. By the way, his tribe that he represents has said publicly, we do not, and this is before this incident, in regards to the college campus thing, they have said, we do not agree with his tactics. Right? He said, at first I wanted the teachers and chaperones to be reprimanded, some fired for letting this happen. For the students, I was against any expulsions, but now I have to revisit that. These kids did nothing. They did exactly what they should have done in Martin Luther King terms. He, Sandman, stole my narrative. From the time I hit that first beat of the drum until I hit the last beat, I was in prayer. Now all of a sudden, he's the prayer guy and the passive one. Yeah, he didn't instigate anything.
Yeah.
I take great offense to that term, protester. We were not protesting anything, Phillips said. In fact, we were the only group with a permit to be there, and we were marching for solidarity and for being indigenous people. We were there in prayer. We wanted to make a better America. Not according to your last actions or future ones. By the way, we'll get to that.
I mean, God.
So he was refusing to meet up. Well, things changed. Since then, that was on the 22nd. This was published on the 22nd as well. Within a day, he changed his mind. Activist Nathan Phillips, according to the USA Today, says he will meet with the Covington Catholic students. Okay. He said, and you're not going to believe this one. Race relations in this country and around the world have reached a boiling point, Phillips said on Tuesday. It is sad that on the weekend of a holiday when we celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., racial hostility occurred on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial where King gave his I Have a Dream speech. He says he'd like to use what occurred as a teachable moment. Yeah, so would I. I'm doing that tonight. Yeah. I have read the statement from Nick Sandman, the student who stared at me for a long time. He did not apologize, and I believe there are intentional falsehoods in his testimony. But I have faith that human beings can use a moment like this to find a way to gain understanding from one another. So he said, so let's create space for the teaching of tolerance to happen. I might consider, he said, it's not the right time. I might consider it at some point. There'd have to be certain assurances. So he said that. Here's what he said. Sandman, needs to put out a different statement. I'm disappointed with his statement. He didn't accept any responsibility. That's a lack of responsibility, and I don't accept it. At first, okay, we went over all that. This is our youth, he said. These students may be from different culture, a different race, but I'm American and they are American. This is our youth, America's youth. Is this the future we got? I'm just working for a better future for all of our children, but I can't work with liars and thieves. Sandman, stole my narrative from the time I hit that. Yeah, we talked about that. Let me see. Where is this? Because this is unbelievable. Where is it? Phillips said the argument between the students and the black Hebrew Israelites went on for hours before he was called by God to step in. First of all, that's not true. We saw the video evidence of that they didn't get there until just right before he started doing what he did, right? Where is this? Basically, the students had an opportunity to not hate and to put out an olive branch and say, let's sit down and pray together, he said. Instead, they responded to hate with hate, and Sandman transferred that hate to me. He said, Phillips said, describing the interaction between the students and the black Hebrew Israelites, it was like a tornado. I live in the plains and I've watched a tornado come down. It's very destructive. What I saw in front of me that day was destructive from a terrible storm, tearing apart the fabric of my America and threatening the future of all of our children. I saw racism and bigotry. Okay.
You are the agitator.
Yeah. So there's a point in here, and I wish I could find it, that he talks about how getting together with these students, that he wants to sit down with them and have a discussion on race relations in America. Based on what? He wants to now... He's seeing another opportunity for the media to use in his favor to say, yes, I will meet up with them to talk about race relations. Well, that's not what you guys should be meeting up about. What you should be meeting up about is for you to apologize after video evidence shows contrary to what you said and apologize to these students. Instead, you want to take that narrative and still switch it around and get these kids to say, no, we don't want to meet up with him and talk about race relations. We did nothing wrong. See? They're racist. They don't even want to sit down and talk about race relations. That's what he's hoping for the media to put another spotlight on, right? First of all, let me talk about this. This is another thing I want to talk about too. Nathan Phillips is done, right? And I say that in an activist way because he's gotten away with the Occupy movement stuff. He got away with the college campus thing that no one can prove actually happened. But the amount of attention that this got, if he ever shows up again in a situation and the media blows it out of proportion, he already doesn't have credibility anymore.
Well, his credibility shot.
Yeah, so it's done. He's done. His activism might as well be undertones and put someone else in the spotlight in his group, right? Anything on that at all before I move on?
No, I think you covered a good majority of that.
How about this? Besides the left jumping all over him, the right did it too. And that's unfortunate. But we have been put into a position now where we are constantly being told that we have to condemn the actions of people on our side if we want to have any credibility left ourselves, right?
Right.
But the left, as I mentioned with my liberal friends even, refuse to acknowledge and condemn the actions of their own side and refuse to ever apologize, right? So as much as I hate saying this, it's time to buckle up, right? And not apologize to these pansies anymore because they refuse to do it. And if they refuse to have an active, intelligent debate and conversation in this country, we cut them off. It's done. If you refuse to accept responsibility for your inactions, for your fake news, for all the crap that you're putting on the rest of the American people that are working hard every day to do something for this country, and you crap on us like that, we're done with you. There is no more discussion. Right. Okay? And for the people on our side that jumped the shark, this should be a very good learning lesson at this point. Stop, wait for the facts, look like you actually did the research and report intelligently.
Act like a news organization.
Yeah. How about this? George Orwell in 1984 wrote this. To wear an improper expression on your face, to look incredulous when a victory was announced, for example, was itself a punishable offense. There was even a word for it in newspeak. Face crime, it was called. What were they reporting on over the weekend?
The smirk.
The smirk. George Orwell wrote that in 1984. Or, I'm sorry, George Orwell wrote that about 1984. Yeah. Amazing.
Face crime.
We talk about George Orwell's 1984 all the time and how a lot of those things are coming to fruition. It's like prophecy at this point, you know? Have we been getting anything on there at all?
No.
Okay, all right. I talked about the past of Nathan Phillips, the present of Nathan Phillips. This is what happened on Saturday. Saturday, after all this happened, on Friday. Report, Nathan Phillips led protest attempting to crash a mass after Covington Catholic confrontation. Soon after, Native American activist Nathan Phillips confronted high school boys from Covington Catholic in front of the Lincoln Memorial. He reportedly led a protest of about 20 fellow Native activists, unsuccessfully attempting to crash the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception Saturday evening Mass. While chanting and playing ceremonial drums, a group of Native American rights activists, reportedly led by Nathan Phillips, attempted January 19th to enter Washington, D.C.'s Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception during a Saturday evening Mass. The group of 20 demonstrators was stopped by shrine security as it tried to enter the church during its 5:15 p.m. vigil Mass, according to a shrine security guard on duty during the Mass. So, right off the bat, Nathan Phillips used this viral video to gain lying fame, to push an agenda as an activist, and was riding that success of not having the facts out yet to try and continue to do things over the weekend.
And to rally more simple-minded people to his cause.
Yes. Yep. And the last thing in regards to all this, like I said, I put a lot of time into all this. According to the Daily Wire, breaking today, the Covington kids are going to the White House. On Tuesday, Nick Sandman...
I expected that.
Nick Sandman, the student from the Covington Catholic High School, who was at the center of the controversy with Native American Nathan Phillips last Friday near the Lincoln Memorial, confirmed to the Daily Wire that the White House has reached out to host the students. Sandman said the president wants to send a plane down to get us. Hey, freaking men. On Monday night, President Trump issued a series of tweets regarding the Covington kids. He stated, looking like Nick Sandman and Covington Catholic students were treated unfairly, with early judgments proving out to be false, smeared by media. Not good. But making big comeback. Huge comeback. Huge. New footage shows that media was wrong about teens' encounter with Native Americans, and he tagged Tucker Carlson. So they're going to the White House. And this is kind of like what my wife and I talked about. She didn't vote for Trump. Oh, I shouldn't have thrown her under the bus like that. She was disgusted by him.
Okay.
I was disgusted with his behavior during the primaries. I make that very clear. I was a Ted Cruz guy, you know. But I voted for Trump in the end because I thought it was important for the Supreme Court and everything. And thank God, by the way. That being said, she said today when I talked about this is why I like Trump. Because he doesn't shy away from controversy. He creates it with stuff like this. Like, any other president would be like, this is a tricky racial situation, and we don't know what the kids are doing. We don't know what the minority two groups are doing. I'm just going to stay out of it, right? Trump is like, there's video evidence. These kids are coming to the White House, and I'm supporting them over the other two groups. Freaking men. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. So that was my main topic. Do you have anything else that you want to say about those kids at all?
No, I just feel bad for them.
Yeah, no kidding.
I feel completely horrible about that whole situation.
Yep.
I hope they're vindicated in some way.
It's going to be a tough road.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But, the truth shall set you free. The truth is out there.
Yeah.